Welcome to Healing Honeys, the podcast for girls with big dreams trying to balance it all. I'm Louise Rumble, serial entrepreneur, type A overachiever, healing girly, and holistic wellness coach who also once got called the Jesus of modern dating. But let's get one thing straight. My healing era has never been calm. I'm talking savage dating stories, 20 cigarettes a day, daddy issues, an anxious attachment style, and an autoimmune disorder too. Today, I've spent thousands of dollars on healing and therapy, and now I'm here to guide you, love you, and laugh with you as I share my favorite tips, tricks, and rituals that have saved me along the way. With new episodes every Wednesday, expect girl talk, psychology, and the nervous system, as well as love, sex, and dating, wellness, fitness, and a little bit of business and spirituality too. So get in, honey. We are balancing healing, hustling, and life, and the best is yet to come. And if you're looking for ad-free listening or my somatic healing subscription daily devotion, just head over to the show notes. Now, let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of the Healing Honeys podcast. I'm your host, Louise Rumble. Today, we are getting into a juicy hotline submission. And we are talking about men in power. Now, I have a lot of things to say about this voice note that has been submitted through the hotline, and I'm so grateful for all of you that share your stories with me, that ask for my help and my thoughts. And like every other episode on the hotline, I am here to help you, to give you insight into what I would do if I was in your situation. Let's get into it. First up, I'm going to play you the voice note through the hotline.
Hi, Louise. So in 2014, I was in uni studying chemistry and had the most attractive man I've ever seen as my physical chemistry tutor. He was athletic, popular, intelligent too. I ended up having a boyfriend who saw him once at a chemistry event and was very worried. Cut to December 2022. After a dating hiatus, I downloaded the apps again and matched, and he messaged me. He remembered me more than expected. We were texting back and forth, real flow and chemistry, pardon the pun. Then the texting turned to sexual and texting words, voice messages, photos, videos were exchanged, and it was so hot. I wasn't looking for yet another casual encounter, so I told him this and he was disappointed but backed off. However, every few months, he would message again and we would resume our repartee, each time getting more personal and extreme in terms of kinks and sexual desires. I'd rarely explored these with anyone, but one thing was that he always wanted me to do like a live video or this or that, which I didn't feel comfortable with, but for some reason over time I'd give in. Over the summer I stopped and removed him and kept dating, and by August we matched again on Bumble and started chatting again, and it was very intense and personal, chatting about our lives, but he always seemed reluctant to meet up. And to be honest, when the ball was in my court, my gut told me, do not go to his house, he will make you do something. Eventually, he got me to do a video call, something that I was initially not really comfortable doing. But once he got that, he pretty much stopped chatting to me. After repeatedly telling me all along that he was not looking for a relationship, he told me he just started dating someone. And it took such a massive blow to my confidence. And it actually started to really impact my mental health. And I actually have to go to therapy again, which is always great. And I'm getting a lot better. But it took me probably 6 months just to even recover from it. I'm still like going through bouts where stuff like this really gets to me. So I guess I don't really have a question. It's more of a story and more of a commentary on dating in the digital world and how there's a lot of people who no longer want to meet up in person and are relegated to having these almost voyeuristic, manipulative digital relationships because there's no real expense. So yeah, that's my story.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I am so grateful for you guys always being honest and open about everything that it is that you are going through. And as ever, when I listen to these hotline submissions, I write down things that jump out from me in the submission. I always think it's so interesting, like the words that we use as human beings, they often give little insights into, I think, what is really going on in our psyche. So first of all, I just want to pull out that he was the most attractive man that you've ever seen. And I mean, of course, you were going to be weak to that. Like, how many of us have been in a situation where it doesn't actually fucking matter how they treat us? Like, if they are hot or there is any chemistry with them, it's like all of our standards just go straight out the window. So I want you to know that on that point, you are not alone at all. And I've shared this story before about how I used to chat with one of, I'm not going to say, give too much information away so you guys can find out who it is, but one of the world's most well-paid male supermodels in the world. And honestly, I was just like weak for the attention. Like, he was so handsome. I couldn't believe that this man was interested in me. And so it's basically exactly the same thing that this lovely lady has gone through. So I just want you to know that we've all been there where it's like we cannot believe that this person might be interested in us. And we're going to get into in today's episode why that is and the wound that sits kind of at the root of that that can make us more vulnerable to this type of behavior. But that was the first thing that I pulled out. And then you said he remembered you. And that feels so good. Am I right? For someone to be like, hey, have we met before? Like, hey, I remember you. That is just a part of this jigsaw puzzle. And it's really interesting for me how you said at the beginning, like, it was so hot to begin with. And I think, again, like a lot of us can relate to that because at the beginning, it is so hot. It is so exciting. There is so much hope. There is so much fantasy. Like, all of the biochemistry and everything that is like firing the adrenaline and the cortisol, the dopamine, like the fantasy at the very beginning is very real. Like the fantasy that this man, he's going to pick me, he's going to love me, he's going to choose me. Like that is so real. And I think at the beginning, like it is so hot, it is so fun. You know, you really do get swept up in it. And unfortunately, it is kind of as things start to move like very fast that we often do end up being like, wait a minute, like this actually doesn't feel quite as good as when it started. But the problem is like by that point, we feel like we kind of got carried away with the first part of the texting and the sexting and the, you know, being excited and being flirty. And then it feels like we can't backtrack at this point. So I want anyone listening to know that you can backtrack at any point. You can literally backtrack whilst you are having sex with someone. Like just because you have done something does not mean you are obligated to do it any further. It does not mean that your boundaries like don't count at that point. You can stop anything in this world whenever you want, despite anything that you have said, done, been a part of up until that point. I just need you guys to really, really, really understand that. And I never understood that. I got myself into situations that I really should not have been in and that were very traumatizing for me because I felt like I've gone this far. Now I can't set a boundary, you know? And I think often when we have this wound where we just want to be loved and chosen, we often end up when we don't use our voice and when we don't pace in dating or with people that we're getting to know, we often do feel like we're just going to give too much of ourselves too soon. And in the moment, it doesn't feel like too much too soon. Our inner child is just like, love me, pick me, look, I'm cute, I'm fun, I'm sexy. You know, you made the right decision, like giving me your time and your attention. But what I've learned from going to therapy is like that is a wounded part of us that feels that we need to put the best version of ourselves forward, that we need to do the sexy things, do the fun things, always look our best. And that is something that I have really learned from going to therapy. So I just wanted to share that there, that like it's natural that to begin with this was really hot. And then I think it's also natural that things started to make you more uncomfortable as time went on, because the reality is like as time went on, reality started to come to the foreground. And what that reality was and is, we're going to go into in today's episode, but that's something that I picked out. Now, another really interesting thing that I picked out here is the sexual desire. Now, I think there are certain people that we meet in our life that arguably you could say actually like came into our life as a catalyst for understanding ourselves better. And sometimes that can be on an emotional level, sometimes that can be on a physical level, sometimes it can just be someone that really teaches us that we are worthy of being loved and being heard, and that nothing we could share with them could make them love us less. But it can also happen on a physical level too. And I kind of call that like the sexual awakening. And you guys might have gone through this with people in your life where you meet someone and you just have this connection, whether it's online, whether it's offline, where there's a part of you that you feel like can be unleashed, a part of you that is accepted, a part of you that can be explored. And in, I guess, psychology and in this kind of therapy world, we can often refer to this as the shadow side. And I think there's this shadow side of sexuality where it's like we're always taught to like be the good girl. But at the same time, we're also taught like we should be sexy and like we should be desirable and we should be good in bed and all of these things. But really, to work out what we actually are and what we actually feel and what we actually like, we have to explore that. Now, what does exploring involve? It involves safety. It involves communication. It involves actually exploring things and saying, I like that. I don't like this. I want to try this. But often we can't get to that stage until we feel safe with someone, because in today's like digital dating hookup world, it's very much like fuck and duck. Like, you will have sex. It's very rare that someone's going to be like, how do you like it? Does this feel good for you? What can I do more of? And I remember when I was like 18, some guy said to me, like, tell me how you like it so I can do more of it. I like did it. I like literally froze. I did not know what to say because no one in my life had ever asked me that question before. I had just like hooked up with my boyfriend before that. I'd only been with one guy in silence. It was like we never really spoke too much about like what we were experiencing together. So, this concept of like a sexual awakening with someone is also really, really powerful. And that isn't something that I would shame any of us for. Like, I think it's so important that this honey had this experience where she got to be like, I can feel liberated. I can feel confident having these discussions, like discussing kinks, discussing desires. Like, these are conversations that we should all be having, but we should be able to have these conversations without obligation that we have to follow through. We should be having these discussions without obligation that we have to try the kink, that we have to try the desire, that we have to do the video call. So this is, I think, a really important distinction, that just because you can have sexual talk with someone doesn't mean that you have to have sexual acts or like sexual engagement with them. And again, like I said already, I think sometimes when we get into this space that like, oh, you're having these sexual like discussions with someone, there does feel like there's a pressure to pull through. And then it's like, there's the pressure to like not be a tease, not give them blue balls. Like, unfortunately, everything in this world today stems out of the patriarchy, which is where men derive their power from having sex and women have to submit to them. And I think it's very hard, and it's probably wired into us as well, that like we just kind of submit to what the man wants. But unfortunately, that is not how we are functioning. And if you listen to this podcast, we are not going to be doing that anymore. So, like I said, just because you are doing something, it doesn't mean you have to do something else. And I want you guys to know that you can explore those desires, you can have those conversations without feeling like you have to send pictures or send videos, because oh my God, like I have done so many things in my life that I regretted. And honestly, I remember like one of my friends, I don't know if she's going to listen to this. She was like, babe, you're going to be famous one day. And like, you should probably get some people to sign some NDAs, like with your nudes out there. And I was like, yeah, I can't really do that. I'm just going to have to trust that these like good guys that like aren't going to leak them. And as of yet, I'm not famous. So I think we're safe. But we've all done things where, you know, the repercussions could be painful, could be upsetting. So I think it's just good for us to step into a place of power where we don't do things that we don't want to do. And we're going to get into that today again. But this listener basically said, like, she felt forced by this man to do things. She did things she didn't want to do. And actually, that was her gut. You know, she was saying, like, oh, I don't know why I felt like I shouldn't go to his house. She was 100% spot on. She shouldn't go to his house because this man was absolutely going to use his position and power and manipulation to have sex with her. And if she did not feel 100% safe with this man, with his intentions, then she absolutely should not have done that. So my heart really goes out to this woman. But what I am really happy about is that you didn't go through with things that would be making this situation like even more painful for you to be dealing with. So yeah, sending you so much love there. And I also think it's really interesting that you said you went back after a dating disaster. Now, this is going to tie into the psychological deep dive we're about to do on like what really went on here from my perspective. But I think, you know, when we are weak, we go back to people that provide us with a source of something, like a source of love, a source of attention, a source of validation. And it's natural that when we're lonely, when we feel down, when we feel, you know, maybe all of our friends are in relationships, maybe we've just come out of a breakup, we often go back to people or places or things that we shouldn't. And so, again, it's okay to give yourself some grace that you did circle back a couple of times, but that there's always a weakness there that was kind of driving that. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from this is that this whole experience, it's really hurt you. And I wish I could take that pain away from you. But at the same time, it's really going to teach you so much about things that you can work on to not, I guess, have this happen again. But more importantly, how you can protect yourself from men like this. Now, I just want to say that this whole concept of the power dynamic, I've been there. And as I was kind of researching this episode, I was thinking about all different kinds of power dynamics that exist. And I want to start by sharing like quite a funny story. So, you guys know I did my motorcycle license recently. Now, God bless him, but the man who did my motorcycle license with me, he was not conventionally attractive. I'd say like he was missing some teeth. He was really like rough and ready. Nothing wrong with not having any teeth. Like, that's okay. But he just like wasn't my usual type. Let's put it that way. Anyway, I need to share like the weirdest thing that happened. So we go out and we're doing my exam, okay? And I don't know if you guys know about doing a motorcycle license, but when you do your exam, you're on your motorbike, you have your headset on, you have your helmet on. He's talking in your ear. He is telling you what to do. This man is saying, Louise, go right. Louise, go left. Guys, I'm not going to say I was like turned on during my motorcycle exam, but I'm going to say that it was in that moment that I realized I am still a little bit weak to a man in power. I'm still a little bit weak to being told what to do. Now, this is fucking weird because if you guys know me, no one can tell me what to do. No one can tell me what to do. If a man tried to tell me what to do, I would literally be like, go fuck yourself. Like, there is no part of anyone in my life that tells me what to do. Like, in my opinion, I'm a force to be reckoned with. No one tells me what to do. But in this moment, I just noticed that male authoritative figure telling me what to do, it did something in my body and in my nervous system. And I think that is just really important to understand here is that in these roles of power and these like power dynamics, the tutor here, he was in a role of authority. He was in a role of influence. He was in a level of superiority. He's off boundaries, right? It's like the guy that you're not allowed to be with. It's like the guy that dated your ex. Like there's rules and there's structures in place in this world where it's like hard no, like you should not do that. And within the structures of society, maybe it's in the workplace, whatever, there's parts of us that like want to do it more because we're not allowed to do that. And that's like kind of the rebellious side of us. Like it's naughty. It gives us those dopamine hits, those adrenaline hits, like, sneaking around behind people's backs. It's kind of like the thrill of the fantasy. These are all very real things. And I think that the psychology of these power dynamics are so interesting as well, because when someone else is in a position of power or in a position of superiority, it definitely makes us feel like special that they've seen us and that they've chosen us and that they're talking to us and that they're engaging with us. It feels like, to an extent, like, why me? I obviously wasn't turning around on my motorcycle license being like, oh, like me? Like you want to tell me to go left at the junction? Like, oh, okay. But you guys, you get what I'm saying here is like, there is a level of imbalance in the power dynamic. And I was thinking about like other situations that this happens in, because I know that this is quite a unique situation. Like most of us probably haven't hooked up or like had an online digital situationship with our chemistry tutor. Just trying to think if I have ever had something similar. I mean, I went to an all girls boarding school, so there was only like one male teacher. I'm pretty sure he was like gay and like, yeah, you would just like never. But the other things that I wrote down was like the jock, the model, the ex, when they're richer than you, when they're more successful than you, when they have a higher social status than you, fame. If they have fame or influence in their world, it can make you feel like being chosen by them kind of like elevates your worth to some extent. And, I think we see this a lot with like people dating celebrities or people dating rappers. Like there's a lot of people that will like overlook bad behavior as long as they can be like chosen by that person because there's some thing that they get or like through association with that person. So I definitely think that there's lots of different power dynamics out there. And I think like the boss in the workplace is like definitely one. And I was also thinking kind of like the fireman, the policeman, they always say like, oh, like a man in a uniform. Like, I get it. I'm just saying, like, I get it. And the more research that I did into this, I'm like, trying to understand why some people are weak to a man in power, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who maybe wouldn't have the same psychological, biological, nervous system, chemistry, fantasy reaction to someone in a place of power. And the more research that I did into this is it kind of ties back to this point of like being chosen. And I think that for the most part, most of us in today's society do struggle with lower self-esteem, lower self-confidence, comparison to other people, judgment. And we do feel like we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough, we're not rich enough. Like the world we live in today is really savage. So when we have those wounds, it really like makes a lot of sense that actually if someone does show up and they are in a position of power and we perceive their choosing to be more important and hold more weight than our choosing, then it makes sense that if they want to choose us, right, and they shine a spotlight on us, that we are going to be like, oh my God, this person wants to pick me, love me, choose me. So I think that's really interesting. And then there's also this concept of transference. Now, this is basically where we project feelings that we had towards authority figures in our childhood onto someone who holds a similar role. And the more and more research I did, it basically said that this is why a lot of us feel a strong pull towards people in power. Because it's like the adult version of you is still chasing that validation that your inner child never got. And it can be inherently tied back to the father wound. So I would love to have this girl on the podcast and we could like better understand like what is going on with her and how her family dynamics were. I would love to understand, was her dad around? Was he really consistently there? Was he very emotionally available? Was he not good with emotion? Was he closed off? Was he at work all the time? How did her nervous system develop during those 0 to 7 years at the beginning that molds every single part of us? What was the man in her life showing her nervous system that love was? I would love to know what the answer was to that, because there might be a chance that I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Now we are here like with this concept of transference, looking at the tutor in the same way as she looked at her dad. And again, this is all very subconscious and it sounds a little Freudian, but I truly believe the more research I do that this is very, very real, because these are the years that our nervous system were developing. And you have to think that if dad was at work all day and then came home in the evening, little you is going to get a hit of cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and a hit of adrenaline and dopamine when dad comes in, when he hugs you, or when he doesn't and he goes upstairs. So these are the things that kind of, I guess, laid the foundation of like what love is for us. And it would be interesting to know in this situation if for this lovely lady, like love was slightly out of reach. That would just be really interesting. Now, the problem with people in power is that for the most part, they exploit it. And I think that that is one of the things that we can see happening here. And I want to say that this is like on a spectrum. So I think you have men who have a wounded ego. Okay. So they are going to lead from their ego. They are leading from gratification and validation through sexting, through physical intimacy. It makes them feel good. Within the structure of being a man in today's society, they've been taught that if women are interested in me, if I can fuck, if I can get attention, then I feel good and I'm a man. Okay. That is ego-led masculinity, which some people will call the wounded masculine. That is on one end of the spectrum. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have more of the like pathological states, like the disorders. So more like Machiavellianism. I think I'm saying that wrong, but also things like the narcissism and the narcissist. Now, we don't have enough information in this to really know which end of the spectrum this guy is coming from. And it could be that he was just enjoying the conversation. He was getting a hit from it every time. He was getting attention. He was also getting validation by you being interested in him. He enjoyed the sexual conversation. I get it. It might have been that he was just leading from that. And unfortunately, with the dynamic, like he led you on and then turned around and basically moved on to the next girl. Okay. It could be that. It also could be on the other end of the spectrum, which is that he actually could have been being actively manipulative, because you do have to think, is this the first time he's done this? Has he done this with other students? And I don't mean this to make you feel worse as you're listening to this. It's just always interesting to like look at a person in a bigger picture as to their patterns and their cycles of behavior. And that's something that I've really learned through this journey of therapy, is like whenever I come across them or someone in my life, I don't always like look at just what they did. I always ask myself, is this a recurring pattern? And probably before that, actually, I asked like, why did they probably do this? So I think it's interesting to know that he might have been leading from his ego, or he might have been actually using that position of power to exploit you. And I think what's hard here is like, we often don't see manipulation when it's happening, because it's like one of those very expensive Easter eggs when there's like things in the middle and then like more layers. Okay. So it's almost like the manipulation is on the inside of the Easter egg. And what we see on the outside is the layers and the layers of hope and chemistry and fantasy and enjoyment and validation and all of the things that this person like makes us feel about ourselves when they are messaging us and when they are enjoying talking with us. We're kind of blindsided by those because they feel so good. And what that actually means is like often we don't see what else could be happening, which is kind of like the manipulation side of it. But I think also what is really interesting here is that I feel like there's a sense of almost guilt from this person being like, this wasn't even real. Like I shouldn't feel this way, or it shouldn't be taking me this long to get over it. And the truth is that this damaged you, and it damaged you because it felt real. And it felt real because your body perceived it as real. That's the thing about online texting. That's the thing about online sexting, about situationships. They feel real because they have a biological impact in our body that our body basically thinks it is real. It can't tell the difference between like this person is loving on me sat next to me in bed, or this person is loving on me and giving me attention through a phone. It does the same biochemical thing inside of us. So let's just also have like a moment of grace for anyone that is hurting or kind of grieving over a situationship or something that was digital in nature, because your body is perceiving it as if it happened in the 3D reality right next to you. There isn't a lens on your nervous system that can say, oh, this is just digital, so it's not going to hurt us as much. No, it has exactly the same impact on your body as it would have done as if it was a real relationship. The same highs, the same lows. He came cycling back around time and time again. You would have got the hits when he came back. You would have had the withdrawal when he left. You would have had the discomfort in your nervous system when you were trying to set a boundary, when you were trying to say no, but he was like pushing you into it. You would have had the same dysregulation when you weren't using your voice because you were scared of setting a boundary. All of these things, very fucking real. So when he ghosted you and when he moved on to someone else, even though he said he didn't want a relationship, it really hurt you. Okay. And I've been there. So I actually, and it's weirdly like interesting situation. I mean, obviously he wasn't my chemistry tutor, but years ago, I met this guy and I thought he was so handsome and he kind of had that like daddy vibes to him. Like he was older, he was tattooed, he had a great job. I thought he was super sexy. He was also like kind of mysterious, which I am not. I'm a big fat fucking yapper. So as soon as a man is mysterious, like my dad, who doesn't share his emotions, I am just like running towards them like it's a 100-meter fucking Olympic hurdle race, literally jumping over hurdles, the hurdles being their emotional unavailability to get to them, the prize at the end of the racetrack. Anyway, we kind of went on a couple of dates, but he lived in Bali at the time and he went back to Bali and he basically like quite savagely, but also very truthfully was like, there's literally no point in us staying in touch because like we're never going to see each other again. And I was like, okay, that really fucking hurts my inner child because like I would love to have like a long-term online situationship because like I love you and I love the attention that you're giving me. That was probably what was going on internally with me at the time. But I was like, okay, yeah, I understand. That's okay. Anyway, he also circled back around and he moved back to England. So we also matched on a dating app and we went for a walk. Now, on that walk, he basically was like, what do you want right now? And I can't even remember what I said, but like at the time, this is before I'd gone to therapy. So I'm sure at the time I just like played it cool. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really looking for anything casual, but like, like whatever. Anyway, was like talking about literally like sex apps on this like walk date that we went on. And then at the end of the day, after he'd been talking about the sex app and like God knows what he was doing, I wish I could remember to give you guys some more insight into this story. We sat in this restaurant in Richmond and he was like, yeah, I'm just like not really looking to date right now. Anyway, I'm actually like really proud of myself because I turned around to him and I said, well, if you're not looking to date right now, why did you ask me to meet you for a walk? A, very strong, well done, Louise, very proud of you. B, bless, so sweet. Like, obviously, Louise, he met up with you because he wanted to fuck you and he thought that you were going to be okay with that. Oh, so I was proud of myself for using my voice. I wasn't like 100% independent woman though. Like I left and I said like, thank you for sharing your truth. I appreciate it. Like if anything changes, let me know. Like that's a little bit cringe. Anyway, what happened next? Literally like a month later, he was in a relationship. And actually, I think the next day I found him on Hinge. I think I found him on Hinge. I was really upset because at that point it triggered those wounds where I was like, why not me? why not me? And I think that that's kind of what's happened in this situation is like he said he'd met someone else, whether that's like even the truth, we don't know. But it's not even about the other person. It's more about the why not me? Why not me? Why am I not good enough for you? So I want you to understand that when he ghosted you and when he said that he met someone else, again, it felt very real. And those abandonment wounds and those inner child wounds of why not me, they also felt very real. And the emotional toll of these kind of relationships, like they're very real as well. And I do think this concept of like feeling used is really horrible. And I can't remember if you explicitly said that you felt used, but I have felt used so many times in my life. And it's really such a distressing experience, particularly when you give someone your heart, your soul, maybe your body, whether that's photos, digital videos, calls, or in person, and then they don't hold it with safe hands. You feel like used, like, why did I give you this part of me? Because you weren't a safe person to hold it. And that is one thing that I have learned is that often in interactions when I'm trying to give someone a part of me, therapy has taught me to ask myself, are you a safe person to hold this? Are you a safe person to hold my heart, to hold my mind, to hold my values, my viewpoint? Can you hold different opinions? Are you a safe person to hold my body? Who else's body are you holding at the same time? Are you a safe person to talk about any of these things with before deciding to engage and interact with you? And there is a dating coach online that basically says you should wait 3 months before even kissing someone, which I know seems like crazy to most people. And you guys will be like, that is fucked up advice. I'm not giving you that advice. I'm just saying that learning to wait before giving someone my mind, giving someone my soul, my heart, and my body has been one of the best things that I've ever done. Because what I have realized is when we have wounds, we have a tendency to basically hope that someone is going to heal those wounds. And we give them everything. We give them everything that we fucking have in the hope that this might be it, the fantasy, all of the pain of dating and existence, it's over. I found my person, like the Cinderella story. But what I've realized is we will never know someone until we have spent significant amounts of time with them. We will never know someone until we've spoken with them from our head, from our heart. That is called pacing. That is called getting to know someone. And so, what I have learned from my own personal situations is taking things slow is literally the saving grace in any situation in life. If looking to not feel used is your, I guess, like agenda or prerogative, because let me say, I have never had a time when I have regretted taking it slow, ever. Because even if they turn around and they go and fuck someone else or they have another girl on the scene, I'm like, that is exactly why I didn't sleep with you. That is exactly why I didn't share my energy with you, my heart with you. And don't get me wrong, this is me recently post therapy. Me before therapy definitely was not this wise. But what I would say is like, this situation has been really painful for you. And I think a lot of people will be able to really kind of relate that these digital situationships and online dating and app dating today, where we like build a relationship with someone online, it feels very real and it really equally holds the power to hurt us. And it equally holds the power to bring our inner child wounds to the surface. And I think that as part of this situation, this lovely lady is going to be seeing exactly that. Like, not shaming yourself for going through this in any way. And again, I think there's also great things that have come out of this, like I said, but it's also asking, like, which part of your vulnerabilities did this man in a position of power prey on? And not even prey, like, I don't know if he was predatory. I don't have enough information. So maybe prey is not the right word, but what parts of you were weak to attention and love? And that is where your healing lies, to avoid this happening again and to bolstering a tiny bit of like loving, compassionate armor around those weak spots. So the next person that comes in, they can start to prove in the physical, in the 3D, if they are worthy of holding your heart, your mind, your body, and your soul. But for the most part, I'm just sending you so much love. And I think my final part of today's episode is about dating apps. apps. Like, you can build such a false sense of intimacy with someone without actually even knowing them. And so many of us have done that. And I've shared this story before about how when I used to be dating, I was on Raya and I matched with this guy and he lived in New York and I was like going to work in New York and he was handsome and he was really rich. And I arrived and he sent like a $300 or like $500 bouquet of flowers to my bedroom at the hotel. And I was like, this is it. We had been talking a lot before I'd got there. And when I got there, there was just like no vibe, no spark, nothing. And that is the danger of online intimacy. It can feel so good when you are texting back and forth to someone. It can feel so real, but it's through a phone and it's not always 100% real. So I'm there. If you are dating, just be careful of that false intimacy. And that is why Dr. Taryn Mack says you really have to like meet them within a week of doing this, because it avoids you getting into that pen pal, digital situationship, fantasy land territory that can be kind of damaging, because you can really build narratives and storylines over the long haul in these situations. And so if anyone's listening to this and they are dating, just meet them. Same week. That same week, have a cutoff. If you don't meet within 10 days, that's it. Because you guys know just as well as I do, you literally could meet this person in person. There might be no chemistry. And also, like, it would be so interesting if you had met this guy in real life. I would be so interested to even know if you would feel that chemistry in person, because sometimes we've built a fantasy about them. And in person, we're like, ooh, like your apartment is like gross and your kitchen is dirty and like, ooh, your socks aren't matching. You know, tiny things can like give us the ick. We don't get those icks when we are like literally living a fantasy online where we just build this idealized version of us in our head. So give yourself the chance to meet them in person, give yourself the chance to sense the energy and just to see, like, can you talk with them in real life? Are they open to having discussions with you? Is it sexual? Are they just leading with the sexual? That is where the pacing comes in. Take it slow. I had like a 5-date rule before I would do anything with someone, I think. Maybe just to sleep with them. I honestly can't remember. I think I definitely dropped like a cheeky BJ in there, maybe before the 5-date rule. But for the most part, 5-date rule, that's like 5 weeks if you see them once a week. And if a man can't wait 5 weeks to see you, or 10 weeks if you see them every other week, that is not the man for you. And also just say straight up at the beginning, this is what I used to say after I got into therapy. I prefer to get to know someone emotionally before I get to know them physically. I always find that it leads to better sex in the end anyway. That was how I would position it. That's what I would say. And if people wanted to wait, they would wait. And let me tell you, the guys that would wait, they were so much better caliber than the ones that just wanted it there and then. Because the guys that want it there and then, they're the guys that get it there and then. They're the guys that get it there and then from the other girls that they're talking to. So it's about breaking your mold and pattern in order to find other people who can fit into your life in the way that you deserve, because you deserve to be chosen and loved and treated with respect, and not deserve to be pushed into doing things, saying things, getting on video calls that you don't want to do. You know, that is not honoring your truth. That is not honoring your boundaries by doing those things. And I'm not shaming you. I have done this my whole life. But the question is, and the healing lies in asking, why do I feel uncomfortable in speaking up for myself? Why am I scared of my voice? What were you scared that the repercussions were going to be by doing that? And this is where I always say somatic work is so powerful, because when you start doing somatic healing, it's all about, and it's all centered around being able to sit with uncomfortable sensations in our bodies. We can tolerate them rather than running away from them. We can tolerate them without them giving us anxiety. We can move through the discomfort without distracting and avoiding away from it. And by doing that, we can feel the discomfort, but we can allow it to rise up and out of our mouth by saying, I am not ready to take a video call with you. Thank you for respecting that. Or I don't feel comfortable doing a video call with you. I don't know you well enough. You know, whatever it is, however you want to say it, you say it, and you do not need to apologize. It's not, oh, I'm sorry. And it's not making up lies, you know, oh, my phone doesn't have any battery. Oh, I'm at my friend's house. Oh, I'm with my friend. If this is difficult for you, the work for you is around using your voice, stepping into your power, trusting your truth, and that the right person is going to love your voice, love your boundaries, respect your need for safety, and want to give you that safety. It is the healthy masculine that wants to give you safety. They want to be your safety and your stability. They want to provide for you. They want to be able to be a container for your love. My boyfriend would never make me do anything I didn't want to do because his priority is me and my safety and my happiness. And I was only able to find a man like that when I started to do the work that we are all doing by listening to this podcast and doing the somatic healing. So those are my thoughts on today's hotline episode. I hope that you took some value from it. And yeah, whether it's like the three-toothed Romanian motorcycle instructor, whether it's the person at work, whether it's your chemistry tutor at university, just know you are not alone. We are all a tiny bit weak to a man in power, a man in uniform, but the real weakness should be a man that respects you, adores you, and worships you, because that is a real healthy man. They do not thrive on manipulation. They do not thrive on ego. They do not thrive on getting laid, getting their end away, none of that. And that is what you deserve. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you guys being on this journey with me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to come and start somatic healing with me, which is where you can really start to actually do the work rather than psychologically just consciously understanding it through talk therapy, come and join me through the show notes to my somatic healing subscription daily devotion, where I have a free 14-day trial waiting for you right now. And other than that, please share this on your social media. Please like and subscribe to the pod and wherever you are watching this on video, because it helps me reach more people who need help on their healing journey so we can all flourish and grow together. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the Healing Honeys Hotline, and I will see you back here very soon.